Indonesia protests 2025. The truth behind the Indonesian parliament. Housing allowance. Indonesia has entered a moment of reckoning. What began as a seemingly technical policy decision, a housing allowance for members of parliament, has spiraled into one of the most serious political crises the country has faced in recent years. At the heart of the unrest lies a single number: $3,000 per month. That is the allowance lawmakers voted for themselves. For comparison, the average Indonesian earns just $300 to $350 in a month. The message was unmistakable. While ordinary people scrape by, the political elite reward themselves with privileges 10 times larger than the daily reality of their citizens. This policy was more than financial mismanagement. It was a symbol of distance, arrogance, and disconnection. Politics always contains tension between governors and governed, but legitimacy is preserved when the people believe their leaders share their struggles. Indonesia's parliament shattered that illusion. By placing themselves above the people in such a visible, material way, they ignited a fire that words alone could not extinguish. The anger did not arise in a vacuum. Indonesians have endured months of rising food prices, stagnant wages, and a sense of vulnerability in the face of global economic pressures. Many young Indonesians, especially in urban centers, feel trapped between high unemployment and low wages. For them, the housing allowance confirmed what they had long suspected, that the system was designed to take care of the elite first and the public second. Into this climate of discontent came tragedy. During demonstrations in Jakarta, Afan Kurniawan, a food delivery driver, was crushed by an armored police vehicle. The images and videos spread instantly across social media. His death became more than an isolated accident. It became a symbol of state indifference to ordinary lives. When people are already furious about inequality, a single death can turn discontent into rage, and that is exactly what happened. Riots swept across multiple cities. Government buildings were torched, including a regional parliament set ablaze in Makassar. At least 5 to 8 people were killed, dozens injured, and entire districts descended into chaos. Protesters were not merely expressing anger at the allowance. They were rebelling against a system they perceive as rigged against them, a system in which ordinary Indonesians are expendable, while those in power protect themselves with armored cars and taxpayer-funded perks. The economic repercussions were immediate. Jakarta's stock exchange dropped by more than 3% in a single session. The rupiah faced heavy selling pressure, and investors began to question Indonesia's stability. These are not just numbers. They are reflections of confidence, and confidence is fragile when politics seems unpredictable. For a country that prides itself on being Southeast Asia's largest economy, this sudden volatility is a warning sign of deeper structural vulnerabilities. Faced with this crisis, President Prabowo Subianto moved quickly. He scrapped the housing allowance, cut back parliamentary perks, and condemned the police's handling of protests. He promised investigations and accountability. Yet the damage to credibility had already been done. Once trust fractures, no decree can restore it overnight. People saw in real time that their leaders were willing to enrich themselves and only reversed course under pressure from the streets. That memory will not fade easily. The implications stretch beyond Jakarta. In a region where inequality is a persistent fault line, Indonesia now serves as a case study of how fragile legitimacy can be. The lesson is stark. Political stability in developing democracies cannot rest on institutions alone. It must rest on perceived fairness. When fairness collapses, so too does order. And social media ensures that anger spreads faster, further, and more explosively than ever before. For Southeast Asia, this crisis poses uncomfortable questions. If Indonesia, a nation of more than 270 million and the region's economic anchor, can be destabilized so quickly, what does that say about other countries with similar wealth gaps and political discontent? Will governments across the region learn from this debacle, or will they continue to govern as if public patience is infinite? Indonesia's unrest is not merely about $3,000 allowances, it is about a society demanding dignity. It is about ordinary people saying their sacrifices cannot coexist with elite indulgence. It is about the price leaders pay when they mistake silence for acceptance. And it is about the future of democracy in a region where the line between stability and turmoil grows thinner each year. The riots will eventually subside, the flames will be extinguished, and life in Jakarta will return to its busy rhythm. But the underlying fracture, the collapse of trust, will remain. The critical question is no longer whether parliamentarians will rescind their perks. It is whether Indonesia has entered a new cycle of instability, one where every elite miscalculation is answered by mass fury. And if that is the case, then Southeast Asia must confront an uncomfortable truth. The foundations of its largest democracy are far shakier than anyone wanted to admit.